Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate all of you out there, and thank you so much for your wonderful support. Remember, if you've got an experience and you'd like to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me. You can reach me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Throughout the course of doing these shows, I've always truly and completely loved the opportunity to talk with all of you and to hear your experiences firsthand and to have discussions and dialogue with you about those things. And I'm so thankful for everybody that's called in through the years of doing this show and contacted me and been available to be a guest on the podcast, because I think the ability to talk and share these stories and have conversations about them really allows us to dive into what's happened, into the phenomena, and explore what each person experienced to the best of our ability. Now, not everybody is able or willing or interested in appearing on the show as a guest themselves, but many of those people have opted instead to write emails about their experience. And this is my second favorite shows to do, because I still love the fact that these are your experience and you've chosen to write in about them and share them with me and ultimately the listeners of the show. And I think that that's very powerful. While it doesn't give us the opportunity to discuss those things as much in depth, it's still amazing. And these are still firsthand accounts of those of you out there that have come face to face with the strange and amazing and wonderful and terrifying, and you're willing to put them out there. And so thank you so much to those people that do that. And that brings us to today's show, which is me reading several of the emails that have been sent in recent months to share with all of you out there. So I hope you guys are ready. These are incredible, amazing events, and I thank you all so much, those of you that sent these in and chose to share them here on the Paranormal Portal. That is always an honor and a sincere pleasure to be the person that you wish to share these with and on this platform. So thank you so much. So hope you all are ready. Let's dive in and check these out. So the first story tonight comes to us from Randall from Minnesota. And he writes, "Hey, Brent. This is my story from Lutzen, Minnesota." And Lutzen is absolutely beautiful. I've been up there a few times, and it's a great place up there. "So in the year 2000, when I was 20 years old, my high school friend had just gotten himself and me a job doing landscaping at Lutzen Resort, and also a groundskeeper job at Superior National Golf Course across the highway. Back when I was 20, I didn't know a thing about Sasquatch, so when my friend and I first started working at the golf course, we were playing a round of golf with some of the other employees because we all got free golf for working there. Well, at one point of the round of golf, one of the rounds, the guys had warned us not to hit any balls in the woods because there was a hairy man that had been rumored to live in the woods around the golf course area. Being 20 and not realizing Sasquatch was actually a real thing, I just kind of laughed it off when I was told that. So a few weeks later, my friend and I were out playing a round of golf there after work, and the hole we were on had an elevated tee box, and then we had to hit our ball across a heavy flowing creek and into the fairway on the other side. Well, my buddy hit his tee shot on the fairway, and I'd pulled my drive off to the left in the woods. So we went and hit his ball first and then went to look for my ball in the woods on the left side of the fairway. So at the time, I was driving the golf cart and my friend was sitting in the passenger, aka right side of the cart. So when I'd gotten to the wood line where it met the fairway, I was driving right up tight against all of the trees in the woods, because I was trying to find my ball that I had hit in there. Well, I kind of recall hanging off the left side of the golf cart and driving very slowly because I was looking down for my ball when all of a sudden I randomly stopped and looked up into the woods, and standing literally 5 to 10 feet away from me, standing behind a big tree, was what I can only describe as what looked like a hairy caveman. His hair was longer black in color, and I could see the wrinkles it had on its face. I was so close to it. Well, when I saw it, I stomped on the gas as fast as the cart would go, and I looked over at my friend sitting next to me in the cart and said, "Holy did you see that?" My friend had seen the hairy caveman-looking creature also, and as we sped away from it, we were both looking behind us, and we could still see it standing behind the tree, poking his head around and watching us as we drove off. It never made any sounds, nor did it smell or anything like that, but I can tell you what I saw 110% because my face was literally about 5 to 10 feet from his. Well, that was the only time that I had seen the thing, but I never went back into the woods to look for any golf balls after that. It's crazy too, because every single person that I've talked to about Sasquatch in Minnesota said the same thing, and that the creature looked like a hairy caveman. Anyway, thanks for reading my story, Brent, and God bless you. Randall. Well, thank you, Randall. I really appreciate that. And my God, I've not seen these things up close. Again, I think I had an experience when I was younger, having one right behind me, but I didn't dare look. I was just so terrified when I was a young teenage boy. So, I mean, I was absolutely beside myself, but I can't imagine the enormity of that situation, to be so close to something that we really don't understand. We don't know really much of anything about them. And to think that it was just standing there, just observing. Now, it didn't sound like it was aggressive in any manner at all, just more curious, which comes up an awful lot in Bigfoot experiences, that quite honestly, they don't seem to be generally very aggressive for the most part. They just seem to be wondering, what the hell are you doing? So, it seems that they have such a strong sense of curiosity. Now, there are some encounters that are absolutely aggressive and terrifying, and there seems to be quite a barometer or range for those kind of things. But, it's no small thing to be so close and up close and personal with such an enigmatic and incredible being. But I'm glad it worked out as a real peaceful kind of experience, even though I'm sure you were probably, puckered up pretty solidly for a while after that one. But yeah, that's an amazing account. And I guess as far as Bigfoot sightings go, that's a great one, because it wasn't like, supremely terrifying or dangerous. Insofar as any time you see something you don't understand, it could be dangerous. And I would always advise to, operate from caution, but what an incredible experience. So thanks a bunch, Randall. I really appreciate it. And I didn't know that about Minnesota Sasquatch, that people generally describe them as hairy cavemen. But I find that there is, not just me, but it's very, very well regarded that there seems to be quite a bit of biodiversity in them, in how they appear. Some of them look much more chimp-like. Some of them look much more like Patty from the Patterson-Gimlin film. And then many other claims come in saying it looked just like a man. It looked just like a person, except in a hair suit. And that's not to imply that it is a person. Don't get me wrong. The size and scope of these creatures are way too big to be a human being. And most people acknowledge that whatever they saw was way too big to be a person. But the similarities are definitely there. So it is curious that they have such a range of appearance. But, in any case, you see something 8 or 10 feet tall. I mean, that's a whole different reality. That's a paradigm shift all in itself. Seeing something alive and moving that looks like a man, but it's way too big. So fantastic story. Thank you, Randall. And I appreciate it. If anything else comes up, please let me know. I'd love to hear more. The next email comes from a listener, goes by the name of Birdie Cuda. And this actually is kind of neat, because This person responded to a message that I had posted on Facebook after I had gotten done investigating with a dear friend of mine, Mr. Charles Howard Johnson. We investigated a place called D-Max Haunted Bar and had an incredible experience, one of which I shared on the Confessionals with Tony Merkel when I called in, and his director for his documentary had the exact same experience literally the night before, almost literally 24 hours separated from each other. But the bar in question is called D-Max, and it's located in Idaho in a town near, or in an area near Rathdrum, Idaho. I was going to say Ohio. Yeah, Ohio comes up all the time in the paranormal, so it's not unusual for me to make that mistake, even though I live in Idaho. But D-Max is a well-known haunted bar. It's got a long history. Apparently it used to be a brothel and speakeasy way back in the day during Prohibition, and allegedly one of the ladies of the night lost her life there in real brutal fashion. And additionally, there's a former owner who apparently passed away, I think in the 70s or 80s. He lived on the premises in an apartment upstairs from the bar. And so it had a lot of history. And I happened to mention also my experience on Facebook, as I mentioned. And somebody asked me and said, by the way, that wasn't such and such bar. I was like, actually, yeah, it was. And then this email came in. So what she says is pretty interesting, and it maybe speaks to some of the activity going on there from a more psychic perspective. So she says, so this event took place on the third weekend in September. My brother, sister-in-law, and I were taking a mini vacation in northern Idaho, and we got to an Airbnb on Hauser Lake. My brother and I stopped at the bar the night before the event, and to me, when I looked at the place, it just seemed off. Well, I walked into the main entrance when something told me to look at an old pictures that were hanging around. One picture in particular was 3 ladies sitting on a huge log. I was really focused on the one lady in the middle. This will be important later. Anyway, the next night, my sister-in-law and I went catfishing. My brother stayed at the bed and breakfast. It was getting dark and cold, so she suggested we go to the bar, get some food. Well, I agreed. Here's the thing about my sister-in-law. She can see, hear, and talk to people who have crossed over. We get a table, and it's just about closing time, and we're eating our food when she looks over at the bar by the stage like someone wants her attention. I teased her about staring. You're going to give someone the creeps, I said. I can't help it. There's a lady at the bar and she's saying, I'm not doing that. It's not me, she said. Well, there was no lady at the bar. I asked her to come with me, and she gave me a strange look, but followed along. We came to the picture with the 3 ladies sitting on the log. I pointed to the lady in the middle and said, Is that her? And she replied, Yes, that's her. By this time, the owner was around and asked how we were doing. By the way, my sister-in-law has no problem telling people what's going on. Did you know you have ghosts here? She asked the owner. And he said he knew about the lady and gave us a brief history of what happened to her. She then politely told him there were 3 ghosts in there. The lady, a man near the stage, and a very mean one. She wants you to know it's not her knocking glasses and things off the shelves. It's the mean one doing it. He had a shocked look on him when he heard this. The owner invited us to stay for a paranormal investigation that was going to happen soon, but we had to leave early the next day and politely declined and went home. Now, this is a great story and how fantastic to get some kind of insight into what's going on from a different perspective, because paranormal investigating, you get little slivers and pieces at best. And, when I investigated with Charles, and we're going to go back there, but when I investigated with Charles, we had this profound event where my phone was in a selfie stick. I was doing a bit of a video introduction because I figured, well, I was going to start the night out and do some recording of our investigation and maybe make a video of it and post it on YouTube later. But, for the most part, the night really was pretty flat, but it started out with a bang because after I got done recording my intro on the video, I stopped the recording and still the phone was in the selfie stick and I'm holding onto the selfie stick. My phone suddenly starts making an alarm noise. Like, and I'm like, what the hell is that? So I look down, my phone in the selfie stick about 3 feet away from my hand, because I'm holding the selfie stick, is making this noise. And I look at the screen. There's a red band going across the screen saying automatic emergency 911 call initiated. I'm like, oh my God, what in the world is going on? I didn't even know phones could do this. Now, I've been asked several times, was the selfie stick pushing on any buttons or anything? Well, of course not. No, I mean, I was very careful how I placed it in there because I wanted to record the intro and had no interruptions or anything during that time. But it was just really incredible. I hadn't moved it. I just little tap and, stop the recording when I was done. But for the most part, I wasn't even, had only just touched it to stop the recording. And again, no buttons were being pressed, but I wanted to hang up. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? This is crazy. But I was like, well, if I hang up, that's really going to alert them that there's really a problem. So I got to talk to the operator. So I grabbed the phone out of the selfie stick and I'm talking to the operator and I'm like, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on. She goes, what's the nature of the emergency? I said, there is no emergency. I said, I was just, using my phone and suddenly it started alarming. And I said, I didn't even know phones could do this. And I said, but I'm so sorry to bother you. There's absolutely nothing going on and there is no emergency. And then she started to say something else and my phone hung up all by itself, just hung up. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. But I did hear her say, okay, so there's no emergency. That's good. And then she started to say something else and just boom, dead. Like not dead. The battery was fine. It just hung up. And so I was like, oh no, that didn't probably look good, but hopefully they won't bother anybody to come out and check because obviously nothing's going on. Now I was talking to Charles, who I was investigating with. He was setting up his camera about 4 feet away from me and witnessed this entire thing. I said, Charles, record this. He said, I can't. And I'm like, why not? He goes, my camera's dead. It won't work. And now his camera, a lot of times in ghost investigating, cameras will go dead. The batteries will just go dead. And it's believed that spirits use the energy in order to do their thing. So they'll drain batteries. And that might be true. I don't know. I mean, it's a very real phenomenon that's well documented, but, but his camera was not running on batteries. It was plugged in, but it flatlined after that. It would not work. He had to get an entirely new camera later after that investigation because his camera was no longer functional. So it was just this crazy event. So I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be an amazingly bizarre night. But after that, the activity really flatlined. It was really nothing else going on, but that bar has a long history of patrons being witness to several paranormal events. And we talked to several patrons while I was there and, the owner as well. So, and the owner is the nicest guy in the world. He's really a super nice guy. And he invited me to come back, Charles and I, anytime we wanted, just let him know. And he really did he literally gave us the building and he took off for the night. And, it was really phenomenal. So I will get back there and hopefully the next time we'll get some more, get something on film so that I can share it with you guys. But, for those of you that actually tune into the YouTube channel, which if you're not familiar with it is youtube.com/paranormal portal. And, hopefully you'll see something eventually, but as of yet, there's nothing officially planned, but we do have an open door policy with the owner. He said whenever you want. So we'll get back there and we'll try to do it better next time. But that was incredible. But thank you so much for the email. I appreciate you filling me in on your experience as well over there. That's incredible. And, I really appreciate it. And to all of you, if you have experiences, even if you don't want to be a guest on the show, like you don't want to go that far, if you just want to write me an email of what you experienced, I'll be happy to read it on your behalf. Next up, we're going to go to an email from Anne, and she had a really strange, small, hairy people encounter. And, it's not extraordinarily long. There was more to the email, but it went into several various things that I didn't feel, without talking to Anne, I couldn't probably include them because there was a lot of context needed in order for that, but I will share you this part of her email. And she said, "My first encounter is strange to say the least. I was 4 years old and it was in the fall of 1969. All summer, my older brother and sister and all the neighborhood kids had been playing at this 2-story tree fort that was by a creek. School had started in the fall and all the kids were in school. Well, I was too young to go, and my parents had explained to me that we were moving and they had friends that were a couple help them pack everything up. Both our front and back door was open. I really wanted to see the fort one last time, so when my parents weren't paying attention, I snuck out the back door and walked around the house to the sidewalk. I went down the street and into the backyard of the house where the fort was. I walked up to the fort and I looked up and saw 5 hair-covered beings standing there. They weren't very tall, maybe 3 to 4 feet tall. My memory is very vague from so many years have gone by. I remember the long, straight orangutan-colored hair, and I believe their skin color was light. I remember being confused and thinking they didn't look much like the movie characters of Planet of the Apes from 1968. Then I experienced missing time, and when I became aware again, I was on the sidewalk walking home. What was crazy was how I felt. I felt the whole world seemed much bigger, and I knew where I lived, but when I walked in the front door, I didn't know who my parents were. Well, my dad picked me up and set me on the fire hearth, and my mom gave me a loving smile, and I was really happy that they were my parents. We moved to a big 2-story old haunted house. I didn't like living there because of it being haunted, and we moved again 2 years later. So a very strange, unusual event. And, what did she witness? I don't know. That's an unusual one. I think it's a fascinating, claim and an experience. I just don't know what it was that she was looking at. And I guess it's anybody's guess, but the missing time, would seem to imply perhaps something extraterrestrial or something. I don't know. And is that really what they look like or just what her mind could perceive? I don't know. Again, there's a lot of questions in that one, but it is a fascinating tale, and I'm glad she's okay and went on to obviously to live do just fine. But what an incredible experience for a 4-year-old child. Just very cool. Thank you for the email. Next, we're going to go to Lucy from Las Vegas, and this has to do with Tic Tac UFO. This one is also pretty small. She says, "I'm writing to you from Henderson, Nevada, the southern part of the Las Vegas Valley. I've lived here for 4.5 years in an RV park. In the evenings, I like to watch the planes coming over Las Vegas. A lot of planes fly over the top of my home. Yeah, it makes sense. There's always traffic coming and going from Las Vegas. In December of 2021, late in the evening, I walked out my trailer door to have a cigarette. just as a side note, you wouldn't believe how many paranormal stories start with, I went outside to have a cigarette. So if you're a smoker, you might want to quit just because there's something to do with cigarettes in the paranormal. I don't know what it is, but my God, it comes up all the time. Anyway, let's get back to the story. I look up at the sky and see a gray pod with no lights at all. It made no sound and went very fast over my trailer, heading west across the plane's flight path. In August of this year, I saw it a second time, same shape, color, and completely silent with no lights at all. I listen to many podcasts and really enjoy your show. I noticed that most reports of UFOs have lights, so I found this very strange. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Lucy. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that is really unusual. Generally speaking, UFOs are very well lit. They're very visible. I will say, however, and this is my own personal experience, the very first time I saw a UFO, and for those of you that are listeners of the show, regular listeners, I'm sorry to repeat, but it really is a profound experience. When I saw a UFO, it was actually up in this area in northern Idaho, and I was up in a mountain valley and was using a set of night vision binoculars looking at the stars because there's so many more stars in the sky. If you look through night vision binoculars or night vision in general, you'll see so many more lights in the sky than you're used to. And even to the point that you can hardly find a constellation that you recognize. But what I can tell you is that as I was looking around, and this is just to really shorten up a much longer story, I was looking at the trees and stuff around as well because I was having fun playing with the night vision. And I got to the top of the tree. There was a flying saucer sitting there, and it's just about 30 feet above the treetop, just sitting there hovering. I'm like, oh my God, that was my first experience seeing an actual flying saucer, an actual UFO. And there it was right in front of me. Now, I'd looked my whole life, never saw anything, but there it was. So it was this incredible epiphany. And I saw it in the night vision binoculars. This thing was literally the two pie plates, the top one inverted. But the two pie plates didn't come together in a tight fit into a point like you normally see in flying saucer images. There was a bit of a space between the two plates, and that space was filled up with these panels. And these panels were flashing in like a marquee fashion, like at an old movie theater or theater. You know, in that flashing around and around, chasing lights kind of pattern. And I was like, oh my God. So it's giving off light. And I'm like, I got to see this in my own eyes. I lower the binoculars and all I see is stars. I see the tree. There's enough ambient light that I can make out the trees and the stars. It was just a beautiful, clear night. But I could not see this flying saucer. I'm like, oh my God, it left. I raise the binoculars. It's still in the same position. I lower the binoculars. It's not there. I raise the binoculars again. It's there. So it occurred to me that it was able to hide. It was able to cloak and not be seen by the light that my eyes perceive natively. It was only visible using the infrared spectrum. And I was blown away. So is that some sort of function that was going on with this Tic Tac craft? Maybe. Maybe it was just trying to run stealthy. Maybe it's some advanced aircraft of ours. I mean, who knows? That's what really made me believe that what I saw was not from here because it wasn't visible in the normal light spectrum. It didn't exist unless I was looking at it through the infrared. So that really does lend some credence to the fact that, you know, this was something extraordinarily advanced to what we may have. I couldn't be sure. Maybe it is still some advanced craft that our military has worked up, but I don't know. So I don't know about the no lights thing. That's very strange. It doesn't come up often, but then again, if a UFO is running with no lights, perhaps it doesn't get seen much either. Maybe that's the solution they've come up to. I will say that I think the UFO craft that were tracked by the Navy off the coast of California in 2014 didn't appear to have any lighting on it either. There was no visible lights at all. It was just this oblong capsule shape. So I don't know. It's anybody's guess, but that is unusual. It doesn't come up a lot. But again, maybe that's because they have no lights, most people don't notice them. So food for thought, but very cool. Thank you so much for that email, and keep your eyes on the sky. If you see anything else, let me know. I'd love to hear more. Next up, we have an email from Dave from Tennessee. And this has got a few different things going on in it, but an incredibly profound email. So let's get into this. Hi, Brent. I love your shows. I'm Dave, and I'm a friend of fellow Bigfoot researchers like Janice Carter and Scott Carpenter, and I spend quite a time myself out in the woods, having sometimes strange and unexplained experiences. But this experience and sighting all came from in the city of Knoxville, Tennessee, where I live and work. It was the weekend, and like typical fashion, I was out running around with a buddy from work, as we'd left his house to go pick up dinner for his wife and kids. We were stopping at a red light, and this image was stuck in my mind of a black figure in the road. What I didn't know is that this skeptic friend of mine had actually thought for an instant that he'd seen something too, but neither of us said anything as we sat at the light. The light turns green and he begins to drive up this road near where he lives. I had this huge conflict raging inside of me. Should I say something or not? I thought if I say something and nothing happens, he's just going to think I'm crazy, but then this voice inside my head is encouraging me to say something. And it tells me, you might as well go for it and tell him, even if nothing happens, because he already thinks you're crazy. So I do it. I couldn't hold back any longer. I shouted out loud, "Hey man, watch out for this guy in the road." My friend slammed on his brakes fast. Comes to a complete stop. He's looking out the windshield to his left and right and asked me, "What guy in the road?" I said, "Man, I don't know. I keep getting this image in my mind of a person standing in the middle of the road." He says with a long drawn out, "Okay," as he takes his foot off the brake and goes up the road towards the first hill. This is all happening at night and it's dark out. Only the city streetlights as we go about 400 yards up this hill and then down into the bottom of a big dip in the road called Pond Gap. And then start up the roller coaster-like hill. And just as we started to crest the top of this second hill, suddenly the image in my mind appeared as a split screen image on the right with this duplicate image on the left. As I watched in real time, the two images merge into one image of a younger boy on a bicycle. But because he was going downhill on the backside of this hill, we came over top of this hill and this figure appeared to rise up like someone standing in the middle of the road. As we crossed the top of the hill, then the full view of this kid standing upright on his brake pedals, riding his bicycle down the road in front of us. My buddy said, "What the heck, Dave? You just saved my butt from running over and killing some poor kid in the road." Because of this vision of this image and the encounter with hearing this inward voice, with me saying something to my friend, who it turned out also admitted later that he thought he'd seen something too, but wasn't sure what it was. Just something black, he said. But it was enough to cause him to drive cautiously after me saying something. But there's still more to what happened. This kid also happened to be wearing all black colored clothes as we came to a stop beside this kid at the next red light on Pepper Mill Road. We're sitting there and we both are looking at this kid as he pulls over on the right side of us and stops, puts his feet out, and is sitting there looking ahead across the street. I suddenly see this shadowy figure that's semi-transparent come running from the right up this street, and it running right into the kid's front spokes on his bicycle's front wheel. We watched as the kid's arms and hands on the handlebars suddenly crossed each other, as the wheel was turned around backwards. But not only that the bicycle was kicked out sideways out from underneath this kid, I saw the leg of this shadow figure, its shin connect just below the bend of where its knee is at, hit the boy's bike tire. The shadow figure runs across the street right in front of my buddy's headlights. As I turned and following the shadow person with my head, I turned towards my buddy who is looking my direction at this kid. So I noticed that my buddy never saw the shadow person. So I turn back and look at this kid whose eyes are wide open, looking at us like we had done something to cause what happened. I'm thinking, you dumb kid, you nearly just got killed wearing all black at night without any lights on the bicycle in the middle of the road. If I hadn't have said something from the premonition, then who knows what might have had happened. But my buddy goes in his front door yelling at the top of his voice, honey, he says, you won't believe what just happened. You know the 99.95% of the time how Dave is full of crap? Well, that 0.05% of a chance, he just happens to be right about things. He just saved my tail. As he then tells his family what all happened and described the location to his wife in utter shock and amazement, saying, you know where the Pond Gap is over by the school and those two hills? Well, before even that, Dave sees this kid in his mind and warned me to watch out for him. But it's impossible for him to have seen this kid or to know of it because we were still coming up the road and hadn't even reached the first hill when he said something about this kid on a bicycle on the second hill on the back side of it. It's impossible for him to have seen this kid because of the hill between us and the boy on the bike. This friend of mine really thought I was crazy even more afterwards. And after all of this happened, after some time had passed from years ago, especially because he still doesn't believe Bigfoot is real and loves making fun of me for having imaginary friends named Ronald with big red shoes. He told Janice Carter and I one time, well, finally the last time we were camping in the woods, and he swore it wasn't him in the middle of the night peeing on my tent, and said maybe it was Bigfoot, LOL. That even heard something walking behind his tent. I told him after everything that has happened and the many Bigfoot encounters we shared together that we're done being friends. Even after that one sighting where he saw the red eye shine and we all heard the mimicking loud scream from it, mocking a whippoorwill once, and many, many more encounters where he's never been able to allow himself to believe that Bigfoot is real. So much I couldn't even tell you all about it here, but I know you guys believe me, as he even has been growled, hissed at, and had the ground stomped next to him before when he was with me, but didn't see anything. He even called the park rangers to report a god-awful evil smell that caused him to pack up everything and fearing for his safety of his family. They said it wasn't nothing to be concerned about, it's just mold. But if you smell it again, call us and we'll send a ranger to investigate it. Mold? Really? Mold doesn't follow you around like the smell of a dead body that hits you like you just walked into a brick wall. But I was once just like Scott Neal, this skeptic buddy of mine. At least I saved his tail that one time. God bless you guys. You all take care now, and I hope you have a good night tonight. As I always have memories from hearing you read other people's experiences, and even flashbacks to my own experiences, it's nice to know I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who knows how real this stuff really is. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Well, I really appreciate the email, Dave, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. Certainly, thank God you saw that kid. Thank God you spoke up about that, because I can't think of a bigger tragedy than to, have hit a child or a young man in the night. I don't know how old he was, but at any rate, that's absolutely terrifying. And I'm glad it worked out okay. And, yeah, it's weird in those situations because, of course, everybody's always thinking, well, do I say something? If you get a premonition, I guess it's better to err on the side of caution and just speak your mind. If you're wrong, fantastic. But if you're right, then it's so important to speak up and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, my God, just a kid riding a bike in the road. Yeah, kids don't always make the best decisions, but that's because they're kids. They just haven't learned through all the years and wisdom that all of us idiots have learned. I've learned a lot of things the hard way, and so, those kind of things are pretty powerful. But yeah, man, the shadow thing is really pretty profound too. It almost had me thinking, well, was that some kind of thing that was supposed to collect the kid, or was trying to set up this tragedy? I mean, there's dark things out there, and I don't know. I'm just spitballing as I'm sitting here reflecting on what you wrote. But, there are tales, there are stories of things that try to create tragedies because they feed off of negativity and negative energies. So is that what hit the kid's bike when you were parked at the stoplight? It was all frustrated because it didn't work out. Well, thank God. Thank God it didn't. So I don't know, man. It's a mixed bag. All of this stuff is, and unfortunately we just don't know for sure what's going on in most of it, but the discussions are what make it so powerful. So I really think these emails are amazing, and it's another great way for you guys to reach out and be a part of the show and to be on the shows. And so for those of you that are, nervous about, well, I don't want to be on that radio. That kind of freaks me out. I don't want to do the podcast. Well, you can always email me and I'll do it for you. Either way, I think firsthand accounts are the most powerful, obviously, for a number of reasons, because we can all go out there and find things that are claimed all day long. It's just part of the breadth of the internet that there's chock full of people's ghost stories, people's Bigfoot stories, people's experiences with creatures they don't understand, and so much more, psychic and premonitions and everything. But, when you come forward with your experiences, that to me is just amazing. And yeah, I believe you. I believe all of you saw what you say you saw. I don't know what you saw in all cases, but I'm fascinated by what you've experienced, and it really does help me a bunch just to understand what's going on out there. What are people seeing? What are they going through? And so keep the emails coming. And to those of you that might be listening, I'd love to hear from you too. It's a fantastic honor for me to have people send their stories to the portal and to share them and to share with our listeners as well. So, and that's another good part of it, is that, people hear other people's stories and they go, hey, something like that happened to me. I should tell him about my story. And that's perfect. It really does. It really is a self-perpetuating thing. So I'm welcoming all of you to email me. Again, you can email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com with your claims. I'd love to talk to you, obviously, but if that's not possible, just email me your story and tell me you'd like me to read it on the air or on the shows. I'd be honored to do so. So, special thank you to all of you. I know it's the holiday season now, and, we're all in the dead run towards Christmas. Many of us are, but whatever you're doing, again, I just want to express to you my sincere and deepest gratitude and thanks for being a part of what I'm doing and for being so incredibly supporting and, giving me all kinds of encouragement and love in your emails, your messages, your comments. and your reviews. I've gotten several amazing reviews from many of you out there, and I read them all. So thank you so much. That really does mean the world. Oftentimes we do these shows in kind of a vacuum. And so when we get that feedback, it's so valuable and it means the world to me. And even constructive criticisms. I'm not opposed to those either. Sometimes they sting a little bit, but it's okay. If it makes the shows better, I'm happy to listen. So, all I can tell you is this will be the last show until after the holiday. And so next Monday, I'm going to take that off because I'm actually going to be with family. So I'm going to try to enjoy that. But thank you so much for all of your love and encouragement again. Please have a festive and wonderful holiday, whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate.
Well, the only time she really turned with that famous was when I rode across the creek and got down off the horse. She turned to look at me.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, as well as finding us on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, Portl, and we'd love to have you stop by our YouTube page and subscribe and check out our shows there. We got hundreds of shows, Journeys into the Paranormal Portal, so I hope you'll check it out, guys. We're over there at youtube.com/Paranormal Portal, so hope to see you guys soon. We'll be back, of course, for more podcasts in the coming days. So we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can.